Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, the award-winning cannabis news podcast brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Here are your hosts, Phil Adams, Jay Britton, and Andrew McCreadies.
The 117th Congress opens this week with new cannabis legislation. Trump pardons marijuana prisoners on his last day in office. And we're going to introduce you to New York's Pizza Pusha. Jay's got a fucking story about that there.
That's how the dude talks, too. I'm serious.
Does he?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to VoteProPot-Cast. We are so glad you joined us today. We're going to get to a bunch of stuff, but first, I want to get to this very, very important. Well, you know what? I don't know how important it really is, to tell you the truth, Jay, because it's not the kind of cannabis legislation that people like us and other advocates have been looking for. A Republican congressman by the name of Greg Steube of Florida has introduced a cannabis reform bill in the House. And it's nothing like the MORE Act that we saw passed last year that stalled in the Senate, which was a good bill, I thought.
Yeah.
The new legislation is not going to end the federal prohibition on cannabis. Instead, what the bill is going to do is would order the Attorney General to reschedule cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug.
Geez.
So, you know, it's I don't know. Sometimes you say, well, might as well take half a loaf. No, I don't think in this case we do.
No, I agree with you.
I think this one needs to be shot down.
What is Schedule 3? I'm ignorant on that.
I don't know all of the provisions of Schedule 3, but I do know that it would protect federal employees who use cannabis from getting fired.
That's a good thing, I guess.
Right. So if you're a federal employee and you've got state legal cannabis privileges, so to speak, the Schedule 3 is not automatically going to get you fired.
But still, I looked it up. Schedule 3 is stuff like anything with codeine in it, you know, like Tylenol with codeine. And so it's still
prescription
It's
stuff.
Still bullshit. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's still bullshit.
Never mind.
It would also remove a lot of the legal impediments to scientific research. And scientific research is what everybody in Congress on the left and the right is all for, it seems. And that's fine as far as it goes. We're really not going to get any further with this until we research it, I suppose. However, it would also, and this is important, it would allow cannabis companies to deduct business expenses from their federal taxes, which is going to be big.
Yeah, that's good. And does it let them use credit cards and banking? And
not as such, no.
So, you know, I say toss it.
I say toss it. Of course, this is more in line with what Joe Biden likes, who, as we know, remains opposed to legalizing cannabis for adult use. He's about decriminalizing and rescheduling.
Right.
And so, he's got a friend in Greg Steube of Florida, but I don't think this is going to get a lot of play in the House.
I don't think so either.
I think there are Republican members who will not vote for this.
Yeah, and I think this is something that they're looking at his colleagues as sort of a negotiation, maybe.
Yeah, an opening salvo, maybe.
Yeah, to go up against the MORE Act or others that deschedule it. Rescheduling to me is a no way, in my book.
Right. It's like kissing your sister. It's just
well, but it is interesting.
No thrill there.
The first new bill, I don't know, kissing your sister wasn't bad. And just kidding. But
well, you nasty. You just played nasty.
I just said it before you said it about my sister.
That's true.
I just think it's interesting that the Republicans, the GOP is the first one to come up with a new bill. I think that's the only news story there, if you ask me.
I suppose that's something.
Yeah.
4 years ago, we'd have taken it.
Yeah, exactly.
We said, hell yeah. So, but I think we've got our eyes are bigger now. So
Absolutely.
let's move along.
Send us your thoughts at VoteProPot.com/contact or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com, and please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to be part of the show, call our message line at 240-257-2441.
All right, well, let's move on to some business news.
Business news.
I got an article here at a Ganjapreneur by our guy, TG Brandfault. We do a lot of his articles. We need to get him on. We've had a few journalists on the show. We've never called him. We'll have to reach out to him because he does write a lot of really good stuff. So this is an article about Canadian companies as opposed to United States, but it's still interesting. And let's face it, most of the big companies, cannabis companies, are in Canada for obvious reasons. It's legal in Canada,
It's
right?
legal there.
So here's the story. Several Canadian cannabis company CEOs were among the highest paid corporate executives in the nation. Again, this is Canada. In 2019, according to a Center for Policy Alternatives analysis titled The Golden Cushion, CEO Compensation in Canada. So here's a list of those. The first one is Afria Inc., we're familiar with. Their CEO, Irwin Simon, was the 7th highest compensated executive, earning more than $18.4 million in 2019. Now,
18 and a half, almost 18 and a half
all
million.
the companies in Canada, the number 7th highest paid CEO is a cannabis company. I find that pretty interesting.
That's right. Made the top 10.
What's even more interesting is the company reported, again, this guy made $18.4 million. The company reported $16.5 million net loss in fiscal 2019. Now, these are all numbers.
So I guess he really earned his money there, didn't he?
Well, it gets better, believe me.
Okay.
These are all numbers in Canadian dollars, by the way. The second one on the list is Kronos. Kronos Group CEO Michael Gorenstein. He earned $15 million in 2019, making him the 14th highest paid executive on the list. Kronos reported a $121 million operating loss during 2019. So they paid this guy 15 mil, and they lost 121 mil. Number 3 is a guy we know, Bruce Linton, the former Canopy Growth CEO.
Yep.
He was number 50 on the list. He made $9.3 million. And that year, he was let go, by the way, as you recall. That year, Canopy lost, are you ready for this? Are you sitting down? $670 million.
Oh!
He should have been paying them.
God.
Next on the list is Hexo Corporation CEO Sebastian St. Louis, Canada's 62nd highest paid executive, making about $8.8 million. Again, this company lost $81.6 million. And finally,
I'm detecting a pattern here.
Yeah, the CEO compensation totals were based on their salary with options and their stock options and incentives and all compensation combined. So that's where the numbers come from. So I think it's interesting. Every one of these companies lost and lost big, and yet they're paying their CEOs some of the highest salaries in the country. So
Well, I think there's, the two don't necessarily
correlate. Exactly.
They'll correlate. But lots of companies lose money and their execs get paid. They're under contract, obviously.
Right.
If they don't perform, I guess, like Bruce Linton, they get shown the door.
Yeah.
But the current, corporate environment for cannabis companies, even in Canada, is not favorable.
Right.
Or has not been for the last year at any rate.
And there are special conditions here. You got a brand new industry, brand new companies. So, there's a huge capital outlay. A lot of expenditure, a lot of acquisition. That's going to be for a company. I'm sorry, for an industry that's brand spanking new and is expanding like this. There are going to be losses for the first few years. That's to be expected.
And there's going to be growing pains in terms of that kind of investment outlays often involves an operating loss. Not uncommon at all. But in addition, I think in the cannabis industry, there's a lot of unknown and unknown unknowns as far as how big to grow, how fast. And I think in certain respects, I know with Canopy, And I think with Afria too, their eyes were a little bigger than their stomachs, and they've had to close down a lot of their grow operations, a lot of their dispensaries.
But the bottom line is, the market is going to be so freaking huge, and once these companies have established themselves, they've bought the equipment and the real estate and all the capital expenditures they needed to make, it's going to be profit after that. So I don't think there's anything weird about this, or I don't think these companies are going away. I really don't. I think they're going to be rolling in the dough in about 7 or 8 years.
Right. Now, there may be restructuring, mergers, that sort of thing taking place in the industry, especially as, U.S. companies begin to come online if and when they ever get this freaking thing legalized.
Right.
So, yeah, I think you're right. I think the future looks bright. The present is a little rocky. And, but, hats off to these guys for making their money. Good for them.
Right on.
I don't begrudge anybody. I don't count anyone else's money.
Hell no.
Jay, earlier you showed me a vape pen.
Oop.
Where did that vape pen come from?
It came from my dispensary right here in Virginia.
In the Commonwealth of Virginia?
The Commonwealth of Virginia, the last place you would expect it. That's right.
Shit. Well, we got some more news. Last week we had some news. Last week, Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia introduced a bill to the General Assembly to legalize adult use. It would allow adults 21 and older to purchase and possess up to an ounce, I believe, right, of cannabis, and to cultivate up to 4 plants.
Right on.
2 of which can be mature plants.
Right.
So there's other provisions. That legislation got a little shot in the arm this week with the subcommittee on marijuana. They have a subcommittee on marijuana.
I do know that. I follow my Virginia Normal.
That's right. You
Absolutely.
And the subcommittee on marijuana has approved a bunch of amendments to the bill in terms of how it's regulated, what agencies regulate it, other things like that. And it has moved out of that subcommittee, and they expect pretty quick adoption by the full committee, which is the Rehabilitation and Social Services Committee of Virginia Senate. Now, from there, what's likely going to happen is it'll be referred to a couple more committees.
Right.
It's got to run the gauntlet, basically, just like they do in the U.S. Senate.
Sure.
It's going to go first probably to the Judiciary Committee and then probably to the Finance Committee to make sure all the
ones and zeros check out.
All the T's are dotted and the I's are crossed.
Right.
And then eventually it'll move to the Senate floor. But here's the thing. It was introduced less than a week ago, or about a week ago.
Yeah.
And a week later, it's already moved through the first subcommittee. I think it's, there is enthusiasm to move this bill forward.
I think you're right, but I know I read something yesterday, and I know there's some opposition in a couple of the committees that are upcoming, and they're concerned about, what will become of the bill and how they may need to negotiate it with those committees. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't have in front of me which committees they were, but realistically, I think by 2022, we could be looking at a bill for vote on the floor for legalized adult use in Virginia, which is incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It has really started from 0 to 60 in a very
imagine if we beat
fashion.
Maryland to adult use. I will come over there.
Are you going to point at us and laugh?
I am definitely going to point at you and Andrew and laugh without a doubt.
All right.
We shall see. Yeah, that's great news, though, Phil. Really, as a resident of the Commonwealth, right on.
Yeah, baby.
Have you heard of a guy? I'd never heard of this dude. Guy's name is Chris Barrett. He's known as Pizza Pusha. That's spelled
Oh yeah, the Pizza Pusha.
He's from the Bronx.
Who the hell is that guy?
Fascinating story. There's a story that's been out for a while now. I ran across it yesterday. It was a New York magazine by Jay Bolger, and it's a very long piece, 7,000 or 8,000 words. It's very, very long. I pulled the article up and said, why in the hell is this so long about a guy selling pizza? But I read the thing and I was like, this is a fascinating mofo. This guy's really incredible. So here's what he did. He moved to Humboldt out in California, a period, I don't know, back some years ago, and got to be hanging out with folks that were growing weed, and he went
now,
to
is that the Murder Mountain?
That is Murder Mountain, yeah.
District
That
there,
is,
yeah,
indeed.
okay.
So anyway, he said he went to a party and these guys were serving pizza that had been infused, and he said, this is what we need in New York. So he went back to New York. This guy opened a restaurant. This restaurant is off the grid. He doesn't advertise its address or where it is, so nobody really knows. It's hidden because obviously what he's doing.
It's almost like a private club.
It's like a private club, but he's making this on Instagram. What he does is you become a member and you email and ask and request a menu, and he sends you a menu, and they have pizza and all kinds of different food on there. All of it's infused. He even has drinks like Sprite and Cokes and whatever, and he infuses those and wings and all kinds of stuff. So this guy has blown up, dude. He's gotten so big. In the article, in the New York magazine, the picture is him on a private jet, surrounded by pizzas that he's delivering to some, I don't even remember who it was now.
So he's a pizza delivery, an infused pizza delivery man to the stars.
Well, yeah, like pop stars, rappers and athletes and stuff. And what happened is he would deliver to some athlete and get a picture of him with his arm around the athlete eating a pizza, and it'd be on his Instagram page. Long story short, it's blown up. And I have a really cool clip here from News 12 in Brooklyn. He's been on all kinds of media. This is a piece that, let me play this piece for you.
Check it out.
Get it out. Here you go.
Chris Barrett is going all in, getting people high on pies and throwing cannabis into not just pizza, but also chicken wings, cookies, gelato, cheesecake, and more.
Here at Stoned, even the drinks will get you high. They put cannabis in 4 different types of sodas.
They needed something to wash the pizza down.
Each pie has 340 milligrams.
This is the good stuff.
Barrett says he usually recommends non-smokers start off with 1 slice, but stoners can definitely keep going.
We want you to enjoy your food. We want it to be an experience.
Are you worried that police are going to find out where you are?
A little bit, not a lot.
But enough to keep his 3 locations a secret and move every 6 months.
Just in case, it's going to take them 2 years to bring this case to its end, and by that time it will definitely be legal.
So with all this secrecy, how's it work? Customers have to request a menu from their website, thepizzapusha.com. They'll reach out so those hoping to get stoned can place their order, and then they can pick it up or have it delivered. Barrett tells us he's taking this risk because the food is good and it makes people feel good too.
Anytime you could be in business and make people happy, you win.
Emily Lorsch, News 12.
Now, how about that? I mean,
that is something.
So one of the things you pick up from that piece is...
So this guy really is from New York.
Oh, is he ever, man?
Oh, my Lord.
Well, it gets really interesting in the article, and they dig into his past. First of all, if you heard in the clip, 340 milligrams for a pizza. There's 8 slices. Right. So that's 42 and a half. I have a calculator. 42 milligrams per slice. And he recommends you don't eat more than 1 slice. These people are eating half a pizza, man. So they're
nibble the crust.
They're getting a serious buzz. Anyway.
Wow.
The interesting thing in the article in this guy's past is that he was in the mafia. This dude, when he was a kid, get out of here. When this guy was a kid, he was an errand boy for that notorious Bensonhurst. Remember the Colombo crime family?
I do remember.
Yeah, they went
down. I remember it in the news.
Yeah,
obviously.
I think it was Giuliani back in the early '90s who took them down with all these racketeering charges. He started out as an errand boy, and then he started.
So he was basically Henry Hill,
right? Exactly,
from Goodfellas.
Yes, and he was stealing cars that they would use for bank heists. And then he became a courier. He was carrying around money, like 80 grand in an envelope in his pocket, and delivered it. So, and then he ended up when all this
did he ever do time?
He did. When the shit hit the fan, I guess he worked a deal out with whoever in New York, prosecutors, and he got 5 years in like Rikers Island.
You took your first pinch like a man and you did it right. You told them nothing and they got nothing. And you learned the two greatest things in life. All right? Look at me.
What is that?
Never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut.
The guy talks just like that, man.
Just
I am
like
not
De Niro.
lying to you, dude. Yeah. So the name of his company is Stoned Gourmet Pizza, and this guy is just killing it, man. He's killing it.
Stoned Gourmet Pizza.
Really interesting stuff.
You got to figure that without even being infused, it's probably pretty damn good pizza, or else it's not going to fly.
That's a good question. And what
can you make an barely adequate pizza and infuse it in people?
Apparently. Yeah. Well, according to New York Magazine restaurant critic Adam Platt, he said the pizza is a 6 out of 10. It's not bad, but it's a 10 out of 10 on the weed pizza scale. This guy said he was doing a Maureen Dowd after he ate like 2 pieces of this, not really understanding how much THC was in it. And he said, "Oh my God!" So anyway, I really do recommend you go look it up. Chris Barrett, aka Pizza Pusha. He's 47 years old. In the New York Magazine article by Jay Bolger in their Green Rush section. Very interesting.
Well, Chris,
background.
if you're listening, we applaud you, and we would love to have you on sometime.
I friended him on Instagram today, and I'm going to reach out and see if he'll come on the show. I think he'd be a great guest.
I think it'd be funny as hell. It'd be great.
I'm going to see if we can get him on in the next couple of weeks.
We now can speak about former President Donald J. Trump.
We can indeed.
Who is in private life once again, but on his last official day in office, one of his last official acts, the president granted clemency to dozens of people convicted of non-violent marijuana offenses. Now, what happened was last November. Now, he has also been about criminal justice reform. Very much. And the First Step Act, and it was a very big deal for him. This is something he believes in. Last November, then President Trump received a letter from a coalition of celebrities, some GOP officials, civil rights advocates, cannabis reform advocates, urging him. And in the letter, they sent him a list of like 24 people serving time in federal prison, including several of them serving life sentences for cannabis possession.
Wow. For nonviolent cannabis?
Nonviolent cannabis possession. Some of them possession with intent, and some of them simple possession. Life sentences.
Wow.
And
good for him, man.
And they urged him to pardon or commute their sentences, and all 4 of them received some form of clemency, or all 24 of them. And so that's one of his last official acts. I don't know if his very last. I guess his last official act was to turn over the presidency.
I wonder how the Last Prisoner Project feels about that.
Well, now there are. Funny you should ask, because one of these pardonees, I suppose you'd call him, is a fellow named Craig, and his last name is Cesal. I think it's Cecil. He got the news in a phone call that he was pardoned from Trump's daughter Ivanka.
Wow.
He said, something about, well, it feels like I have a new life. He doesn't have to go back to prison. Now, he had been on home confinement, released on home confinement due to COVID last summer.
But now he doesn't have to go back.
But now he doesn't have to go back. And he credited, among other people, he said, quote, many marijuana activists have worked for years to make this happen for me, with the Last Prisoner Project helping recently with my reintegration into society, he said.
Right on.
My release and clemency is due solely to their efforts of many marijuana activist groups, and I thank each and every one of them. So he mentions Last Prisoner Project by name, and I think obviously rightly so. They are a fantastic organization, and I, for one, support them wholeheartedly.
Absolutely. We need to get Steve D'Angelo on again because, he's not with Harborside anymore, and he's
That's right.
really dedicating his time to this and a couple other things. So, yeah, we should. We've had him on before. We should reach out and get him back on to talk about it.
Right. So kudos to Craig. Kudos, and all the people who got cleared. Kudos to the advocacy groups, including Last Prisoner Project, and kudos to ex-President Trump for signing the pardons.
Right.
On his last day.
You ever read Dear Abby?
No.
Me either.
I haven't opened up a newspaper in years.
No, me either. I haven't.
I get all my news online, obviously, and they don't. I've never.
No, same.
But I used to like the John Prine song quite a lot.
yeah, absolutely. We're showing our age.
Dear Abby, dear Abby, my feet are too long.
God rest him. He's just passed away. From COVID. Anyway, here's by the way, Dear Abby's dead. I mean,
Abigail Van Buren.
Right. She died, I don't know,
many
7 or 8 years ago. Yeah. She was in her 90s when she died. So her daughter took over I'm making air quotes, business. So she's replying now. So here's a Dear Abby. My husband and I are going on 19 years of marriage and have 3 teenage girls. We have had multiple rounds of marriage counseling, mostly with good results, although the benefits seem to be short-lived. Most of our problems stem from my husband's drinking or smoking pot. Ooh. He's not abusive, he's a good provider, but he just likes to get high. Thank God it's not often, but I'm not, nor have I ever been okay with it. Our teenage girls recently found his pot stash and helped themselves. Hate when that happens.
Damn.
When I questioned them about where they got it, they admitted they found their dad's stash. For me, this was the last straw. How can I teach my kids that it's not okay when their dad's actions say otherwise? I'm now made out to be the prude since I am no fun. I'm a nurse, and even if it were legal in our state, I wouldn't use it. I told my husband that I'm done and I'm ready for a divorce. He says I'm being ridiculous. Do I need to lighten up? I think I already know your answer, but I just need to see it to validate my feelings. Signed, anti-drug wife and mom.
Whoa.
So what do you think?
What do you think, Dear Abby said?
Abby's daughter.
Dear anti-drunk wife and mom.
Well, I'll read.
Dear anti-drug wife and mom, you have no complaint. You are what you...
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I think, I think you should just make the kids pay for it. And if you got teenage kids, this is not Dear Abby's answer, by the way. This is mine. They could probably get you better weed than you can get anyway if you're an old man and they're teenagers.
I think it wasn't the kids didn't find our stash. We found theirs.
Exactly.
Well, it's like my parents. They found mine.
Here's their answer. Although marijuana may be legal in an increasing number of states, supplying drugs to minors is against the law in all of them. Now, he didn't supply it to them. They found it.
He didn't supply any. They found it.
What happened cannot and should not be ignored, but ending a good marriage because your husband likes to smoke pot occasionally seems extreme. It may take more visits to the marriage and family therapist for you to agree to disagree on this, but it is very important that your daughters be disabused of the idea that what they did was okay with either of you. It's time you and your husband form a united front, and he needs to find a better place to keep his stash. I like that last sentence she came up with there.
Well, hide your weed practical, better. Right? Hide your weed a little better. Number one. Number two, and I don't like to hear about any marriage breaking up, but on the other hand,
get the hell out, dude. Run for your life.
This might. This might not be the worst thing that could happen to the guy, is all I'm saying.
I had a friend.
But it would not be good. The children, the kids would not. I would rather have my kids being high than to be in a broken marriage, broken home.
Right. And she said they're teenagers, so they're not children,
Yeah, but it's a tender age.
Right. Exactly. But I'm talking about finding weed, big fucking
for
deal.
that kind of thing.
I played a band with a guy. I won't mention his name here. I played a band with a guy who had been married for 10 or 15 years at the time, and his wife was like that. and he loved to drink and smoke weed, and we all did.
Right.
So we were in a rehearsal studio working on stuff for a show. We were going to go out and do a little tour,
Right.
and she would pop by occasionally. And when she came in one day, and I didn't know her that well, so she came in one day and she's like, we were smoking some weed in there before we were playing, and of course he just turned into a total puss. It wasn't me, hun. It was Jay and the drummer, and I was like,
God.
dude, really? What? Man, grow a pair, dude.
Be a man.
As far as I know, I'm not in contact with him anymore. It's been 25 years ago, but
See, he didn't take his first pinch like a man.
Right, exactly.
He ratted on his friends, and he didn't keep his mouth
I
shut.
looked at him and said, oh my God, dude, this is embarrassing. How are you gonna? As far as I know, they're still together too. So the moral of the story is, don't be a puss.
Well, yeah, and don't be a nag. It's like he's a good provider. He's a good man. He's not a drunk. He does it occasionally.
Occasionally. It's not like he's high all day long.
It's not like he's high all the time. He's not like a fucking musician
Right.
like us. And so what?
Yeah.
You know?
God. Well,
Do I need to lighten up? Yes,
Fuck
you
yeah.
do. Yes, you do.
In a big way.
I'm sure she's a very nice woman, but you do
I'm not so
need to
sure.
lighten up. Well, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I think there's a lot to be learned from that sort of thing. I hope that they're able to keep things together, and I hope that another 6 or 8 rounds of couples counseling will
Do the trick.
do the trick for you.
What he needs to do is get his wife high. That would.
She needs to try a hit,
Yeah. Relax.
And honestly, sit down and tell the kids, look, you're just not old enough for this. It's not good for your brain.
Right.
You only have one brain, and if you fuck it up now, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
And when it's fully developed, go ahead.
We'll get high
But
together.
For
Yeah.
Right. But for now, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't do tobacco.
Right.
Or any other drugs. Well, folks, that is all we have to share for you today, I think.
That was it. It was fun.
That was it. It was a lot of fun. And we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, tell a friend about it. We're really grateful to our audience, and because it's growing quite a lot, and we're very grateful for that, very happy about that. And so you guys are telling your friends about it, so keep it up. Get in touch with us. Jay will tell you how to do that.
You can send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. And we have a message line, 240-257-2441. Like we said last week, we got a case of mugs we need to get rid of because we can't
That's right.
go to any live shows. So anybody that leaves a message on our message line and give us an idea for a show or a comment or idea for a segment, anything. And
Or just say, fuck you, give me a mug.
yeah, that's all it takes. And we that's a good idea. And we will send you a mug. Just after you leave your message, send us an email, tell us what your message was, and give us your address, and we'll mail you a mug.
We'd be very happy to do that. And of course, there's so much that we don't cover here on the podcast, so check us out on our social media platforms. Just go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn and do a search for Vote Pro Pot.